Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Beauty, Strength, and Dominance, the official LFC Lingerie Fighting Championships podcast. I am your host, Mike Larkin, and joining me tonight, mini hardcore country over here with that cowgirl hat, is none other than the host of a Wrestling Gal podcast, and I am ready to chat with her, Miss Ella J. Ella, welcome to the show.
Always trying to steal my line, Mike, but it's okay. I give it a solid 9 out of 10.
Thanks. Okay. Well, I cannot do chat like you do, man. You have the pipes more than I do, but yeah, you always do a great job.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, first and foremost, I will say this. It is an amazing time for professional wrestling and women's wrestling all as a whole. I want to get this out of the way, but also talk more into it because here's what we have to start off hot with. Because here's why I love you. We talk about the Royal Rumble a lot. I always joke with Rumble, so you just want to say how high, and you gave me a how high, and I loved it so much, and it made me laugh. So the Royal Rumble, here it was, your girl. We're gonna start off hot with some hardcore country. Mickie James doing the damn thing in the Royal Rumble. She did excellent.
She really didn't. I believe it was her longest tenure in the Royal Rumble to date. Her coming out was huge, like the pop she got with the championship, all of that, the homage with eliminating Michelle. But I wanted more out of it. Like, I was very excited for her. The opportunity was great, but the execution of like her in-ring stuff, besides her coming in and then her being eliminated by Lita, there was really no focus or spotlight on her once she got into the matchup. They didn't capitalize on Charlotte. There's a lot of things. I liked it, but I also know they could have done more. So
if you follow my homie over here, Miss EJ over here, you will see bonkers. And here's why I say bonkers. You were all about that Charlotte versus Mickie James, like the dream match. You will put it into the air. You put the feelers out there. They could have done more with it, but I also look at it from a stance too. Like, you and I love the storytelling. The fact that she got eliminated by Lita, who was Lita's last match at Survivor Series 06, that was a great story. But for me too, like, you bring in this woman. It's Impact, right? WWE and Impact never worked together. The praise, the buzz that it got off social media, and we got like a little something where we could have got a little more with it, you know?
definitely too, like I said, that homage with being eliminated by Lita, who she was Lita's last opponent in her initial run ending in 2006, but also coming in eliminating Michelle McCool, which that popped me because that was my first women's wrestling feud I ever saw. That was great. Michelle lasted a long while too. I think she lasted the longest for the divas, like the legends. She lasted from like 10 to 20. The impressive stats by Michelle McCool. But yeah, like I said, Mickie, besides her entrance and her like elimination, there wasn't much going on in the mix. She kind of got lost in the shadows. Granted, at the end of the day, it was definitely a history making moment for her, and I know she felt very fulfilled. She has expressed that to me and online as well. She felt like a damn champion, as she should. I just think they could have done a lot more too as well. But overall, it was a history making moment. Still salty we didn't get Mickie and Charlotte though. I was robbed again.
I will say this, Mickie James is also one of my favorites. I was so happy to see her do her thing. And I also eloquently said, I mean, with what we saw with her and Deonna Purrazzo and Impact Wrestling and just moving forward, I think Mickie is going to have such a solid year like she had last year going into 2022, which we are now. But another thing that was the talk of the Royal Rumble, and I'm going to say it because a lot of people had some things to say. I was so happy to see Melina, but goddamn, too short.
And that was the planned spot too. That was not an accident. That was actually planned. And this is not like a secret or anything. That just to me, like the buzz, her coming back with the whole entrance was amazing. But then getting eliminated within like 15 seconds after the bell ringing, like I get it. Like the legends weren't, besides Michelle, the legends didn't necessarily have a lengthy amount of time in the Rumble. And especially for Melina, definitely had one of the shortest tenures in the Rumble this year. And so did Sasha Banks, too. Like, shockingly, I think both of them got eliminated, like, pretty. Granted, Sasha lasted from like 1 to 7, but for Sasha Banks, too, that's like pretty short. And especially Melina, though, especially after coming back after 11 years in WWE to the buzz, to the paparazzi. That was a huge moment between her and Sasha, and to have it pretty much end like that very quickly was puzzling, to put it.
I agree, but I also look at it from a stance. Like I said, that's the negative, but the positive is she came
Yeah.
back. Okay, when we first saw her in 2005 with Nitro and Mercury, Eminem, I was like, okay. And then she does the splits. You have the imagery. Boom, here we are. And her talents, nonetheless, are bar none. She is a future Hall of Famer. But I'm like, again, it's one of those things. It's like that. I mean, we also had Ariane Andrew, who was Cameron, which it was great to see Cameron, but that was the story with Naomi and Sonya. But I mean, we had a nice, great like legends, and watching Summer Rae just bolt down the Royal Rumble right after Natalia. I love that. It was great to see Summer Rae.
Yeah, like there was definitely like full circle moments between Summer Rae and Natalia coming back from the Total Divas days. Definitely like an underrated moment was definitely Ivory coming back at 60 years old in the Royal Rumble, which is crazy, and her having that moment with Rhea Ripley, her coming back to as right to censor Ivory was amazing. There was definitely a lot of moments to pop, but yeah, overall it was good. Could have been great though, but again, I'm not the booker.
That's a badass woman, by the way. Ivory, man. Doesn't matter if she's right to censor Ivory or just
Hmm.
poison Ivory. Oh, I loved it. I mean, it popped me. It made me laugh because the RTC, it was the iconic match with China at WrestleMania 17. A lot of fond memories. And I got to say this as well. We also got Molly Holly and the Nikki Ash exchange. There's only one superhero. I thought that was a nice little tie in.
Yeah, there was definitely, like I said, a lot of moments for like each of the legends in there, which was really, really cool. Like we said, we saw Mickie and Michelle. There was obviously Lita and Mickie. There was Cameron, Naomi, Sonia. There was Summer and Natalia. Melina got in there with Sasha Banks. Obviously Ivory had that moment too. And then that tie-in with Mighty Molly and Nikki ASH was a good. There was a lot of good touches with the utilization of the legends. Definitely some moments, a few concerning eliminations, but yeah, definitely the moments were definitely one of the highs of the matchup.
My goodness gracious. And I also will say this as well. I'm going to put it out bluntly before we talk about the win of the Royal Rumble. The women's Royal Rumble was far and more superior than the men's Royal Rumble.
Oh, you're definitely right about that, Mike.
Oh my God.
Def-
We were having this conversation. This is why I love you, because you and I have our conversations, and I'm like, I can't do it because I'm just like, and I didn't fall asleep as quickly, I don't think, as you did. As you like fell asleep. When did you fall asleep? Because it
Well,
both the shit out.
you have to remember too, though. I had to be up at like 6 a.m. the next day for work,
Fair enough.
and after Brock Lesnar had lost the WWE Championship, it became very apparent and very obvious who was winning the Men's Royal Rumble.
Yeah, and I mean, I understand the booking and the simplicity and the overall predictability, but at the same time, I'm like, it was still boring as shit, and I hated to. And I fell asleep like once we got to like 10, I was out. I tried to go even further, but I couldn't. I was out. It
I
was
mean, I did watch it actually, like in
yeah,
full. I mean, AJ Styles for me was the highlight of that Rumble, pretty much. I mean, but also Bad Bunny. I will say Bad Bunny coming in and eliminating like Sheamus and like Dolph Ziggler. Bad Bunny making it all the way to the final four. So your final four is nobody would have had this on their bingo cards with Bad Bunny, Shane McMahon, Drew McIntyre, and Brock Lesnar. Nobody could have predicted that. I will say
so
that's unpredictable.
I will add to that. Here's why I love that, because Drew eliminated Brock in the Royal Rumble in 2020. That was cool. But
Yeah.
Bad Bunny, I'm not even mad about Bad Bunny, okay? If you give me more Bad Bunny, I'm happy because he's killed it. He takes
Hmm.
it seriously. I mean, we got Knoxville coming in, and we saw Knoxville really show his seriousness as well. But also at the same time, it's cool. And now we got Logan Paul doing his thing. So, I mean it's a more room for celebrities.
That is true. Obviously they're giving celebrities to people they trust, like the Miz. I get to see Miz at WrestleMania, so at least there's that.
So, how pumped are you, man? I mean, we got Dallas, we got the whole nine, man. How excited are you for your weekend, Miss LJ?
So exciting now that the month is finally here. Like I leave at the end of this month. It's insane. I don't know how to I'm very nervous though, but excited too, and not the whole schedule is just wild. Like being a fan is one thing, but being a fan and also working that weekend is going to be crazy. My schedule is already stacking up.
Hey, man, that's what goes with the grind of what we do as not only podcasters, content creators. The grind never stops, and we have to make the most of our opportunities. So, if there's anyone that deserves an opportunity, it's you. And I really hope you have some fun. I'll be tuning in.
Thank you. I will say you will be proud to know that I will be reuniting with Mr. Jeff Hardy for this is my first time in 10 years that
Mhm.
I am reuniting with Jeff in person.
Reunited, and it feels so good, man. All right, I'm gonna say this right now with Jeff Hardy. I cannot wait for him. I've never thought I would say this, and it's so funny that they never wrestled in WWE. I am so much looking forward to him against Cardona and Myers because Cardona has reinvented himself. Brian Myers is great as the major players. Like that is gonna be good. The Briscoes, their indie dates are stacked.
Like people hate on Cardona, but honestly, he really is like breakout of this last year. I mean, spoiler alert, he's now the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. Obviously, he's a former GCW champion, current digital media champion. He's vied for the Impact Heavyweight champ. He's literally everywhere you can be pretty much outside of the two big name companies being WWE and AEW. He's literally everywhere, making a name for himself and really breaking out of whatever former shell he has, and he's allowed to be himself now. And whether people love him or hate him, there's really no denying that obviously he wouldn't be trusted in all these places if he didn't have that value and that drive and that draw to him.
Oh, wholeheartedly. I mean, for me, and I'm going to say this, he actually just won the NYWC, the New York Wrestling Connection Championship from Nobody's Better, Michael Mistretta. For those that don't know, NYWC was a local, and still is one of the baddest local companies out on Long Island for New York. He used to come out to the Backstreet Boys, It's Gotta Be You, back in the day. So from humble beginnings on the indies to where he is now, it's amazing. And I mean, he talks about WWE being his developmental. I mean, there's a lot of validity to that, man. Just going out there, kicking ass and taking names. I'm excited. I'm stoked to see that match. And for Jeff Hardy, I'm going to say this. Besides the fact that you get to reunite with the one and only charismatic Enigma, how excited for you for that possible AEW run in the future? A lot of talk about that, getting the Hardy Boys back together.
Well, the Hardy Boys reconnect on March 13th in Albany, so that'll be their first time wrestling together in a couple years since their WWE days. But then Jeff has a 90, yeah, his 90 days would be up by then, actually. Duh. I mean, he's already alluded to the fact that he would be in AEW. Again, I don't know what their stacked roster. I mean, you could easily have him go in with Matt, but Matt's more heelish right now, and people would pop for Jeff. So I don't know like how exactly that would work. But I definitely am here for the Hardy Boys. I'm sure they'll be. I don't know if if AEW stars are going to be at Mania, if they're going to be doing anything, but Jeff I know is already announced for the Super Show Live, which is where I will be going to see him, and then literally skedaddling over to Impact Wrestling. So it's going to be a wild weekend, and I'm excited for him.
I'm going to say this, folks, and this is also why I love Ella J. For those that don't know, one of her first feuds, that was one of her favorite feuds that got her into wrestling, was the infamous Jeff Hardy CM Punk feud from the summer of 2009. So it's a special place in the old heart, Steve.
Yeah, me too. Oh my God, I didn't even realize like if he no, I just realized if he joins AEW, like the potential there.
Right?
With Punk.
We could get that old feud going back again, man.
I didn't even realize that until now, until you just said it. Oh my God, I would be in my nostalgic days.
That, and I will say this, that also ranks up for Ella, and this is for the LFC fans. They get the chance to really get to see Ella J doing her thing. If you get The Miz and, man, you get John Morrison up in there sometime again, you can talk about him and Drew McIntyre with the, dressing like Braveheart. One of the early nostalgia memories, man.
I am meeting John Morrison as well for the first time ever. Very nervous about that. 12-year-old Ella, like this is revealing their curtain, whatever. 12-year-old Ella would be dying right now. I am very scared but excited to meet John Morrison for the first time. Unfortunately, I can't see him wrestle because I'll be seeing Jeff Hardy at that time. So priorities. So it's okay. I'll be seeing him. Can't see him wrestle, unfortunately, but I'll be able to see both my guys within a couple hours span.
Gotta say, Ella, one of the reasons I also love you is the loyalty to the fans, the loyalty to your favorite superstars in professional wrestling. The loyalty is real, my friend.
I mean, you have to. This is like once in a lifetime. I don't know if this weekend opportunity is ever going to happen again. WrestleCon is going to be fun, doing a bunch of interviews, hopefully anyways, but also meeting people for the first time that I have been waiting like over a decade to meet.
I gotta say, folks, this is what's called staying on your path, and the grind never stops. And I gotta say, with you as well, man. I listened to the latest In the Locker Room with Veda Scott. Y'all did a great job. That was good. And I always love Veda Scott from ROH, from the independent scene. You guys killed it with the Veda Scott.
Thank you. Veda Scott is amazing, amazing at their craft in and outside of the ring. So it was really cool to be able to get their insight. And I may be doing something with them in the next few months. We'll see. I don't want to jinx anything, but definitely Veda Scott is definitely an important addition to CCW. And of course, with Alyssa Marino as well. I mean, two people who are great at their craft with commentary who I look up to. So I'm very fortunate to be able to learn from them too as well.
I gotta say, don't sleep on Alyssa Marino as well. I mean, for what she's got to do with WWE and now what she's doing, what you guys are both doing with Capital Championship Wrestling, and shout out to Marcello, you have such a great, unique roster and unique personnel. It's wonderful just to see how everything's coming into fruition. And as I was talking to you, let's talk a little Capital Championship Wrestling here. Just had their Battleground show. I watched Lufisto and Vita Von Star. Vita Von Star, who did compete, who is 1-0 at LFC 31 for Booty Camp. She, from Ring of Honor, LFC, to where we saw Capital Championship Wrestling, her Lufisto gelled so well, and it was a banger of a match.
Admittedly, this was my first time watching a Vita Von Star match. I have known her on Twitter, and I know a bunch of people are a big fan of her work, but honestly, I have not been this captivated by a match in a little bit, I must say. But she was so impressive, obviously with her gymnastics background and so many unique maneuvers, and also the way she presents herself as she's kind of in this cult-like faction too, with the Righteous going against Lufisto, the first lady of hardcore, who is more powerhouse. And there was a lot of back and forth between them. Like, their styles just meshed really well together. And like I said, I have not been this captivated by a match in a hot minute, and I was really blown away. And I told Marcello that too.
Well, you have to have something like that. We got Lufisto, who's the veteran, like you said, first woman to hardcore, been in CZW all around. You got Vita, who has made a name for herself in Ring of Honor. Like you mentioned, she's a part of the Righteous, but she's got that acrobatic feel, that Circus Olay type vibes. But it's awesome, and you transition to that into your repertoire. It makes for a hell of a match.
It really did. Like I said, two very different styles of wrestling really clashing together too. I didn't that was a match I didn't know I needed, and I'm so glad that Marcello booked that match because it was phenomenal.
I gotta say, from top to bottom, and looking at the Renegade Twins against Riley Shepard and Devin, I gotta say, see Riley do some work for Ring of Honor and on the Indies. This was my first time seeing Macabre. Macabre has got it. She's got that it factor. I know you just did an interview with her. And the Renegade Twins, my God, badass women doing their thing on Rampage and Dark. Two amazing sisters, know each other like glue. It makes for a great tag team action.
Especially too, considering this was the first time that Devlin and Riley had ever teamed up. Devlin isn't one that works a lot with tag teams a lot, but them together felt like a very mismatching team, but it also worked for them. Obviously, though, the end result ended in a little bit of a confrontation between them, and then Riley said she's taking her sword and leaving, which popped me in that backstage segment. It was a great touch. And so really, I guess the next I mean, we're having a tag team cup coming up too. Also, I mean, the Renegade Twins are the CCW tag team champions, but also we're having like a tag team tournament coming up. So that's gonna be huge. I don't exactly know what teams are gonna be in it yet. I have a couple ideas, but there's a lot coming up for Capital Championship Wrestling.
I'm going to say this first and foremost. We're talking about a tag team cup for Capital Championship Wrestling, a women's tag team. Here's the thing. We look at the 80s when we had the Jumpin' Bomb Angels. We had Glow, the original Glow, with tag teams like Hollywood and Vine. We have the current tag champs in WWE, Carmella and Queen Zelina. And I'm going to say this right now. The inspiration, I'm inspired. I think Billy Kay and Cassie Lee are doing the damnedest thing. Jessica, I'm sorry. But it's one of those things where it's just like they have that gel and they're crisp, and I love what they're doing in Impact. But the women's tag team scene is just so good from many different countries, from the UK, what have you. It's a great time to be for women's tag team as well.
Definitely too, and I mean, we're getting Shazza McKenzie has just, I mean, talking international challenge. Shazza McKenzie has just joined Capital Championship Wrestling. Hopefully, we can get some UK talent over here. There's definitely a lot of UK tag teams that I would love to be a part of this. Again, I don't know exactly who's going to be in this. There's definitely some ideas who I would love to see in this, but also we have the network championship being awarded to in this gauntlet match coming up at our next show on March 26th, I believe. So there's a lot happening with CCW.
I'd say one of the participants who I love, and the fact that she's back into professional wrestling after a long hiatus. I'm talking about the one and only Kayla Sparks, who was on Rampage and SmackDown at the same time, getting that kiss from the Los Lotharios and taking on Serena Deeb. All right, I'm going to say this about Kayla Sparks. So infectious. She has that smile, and I can't help but love it. And she won against Mother Endless at Battleground. I got to say, Mother Endless, the styles, the clash. That was another one that was a banger. But Kayla Sparks, what a story.
I was just texting her the other day. I was like, girl, you are doing amazing. I know, like, I think that's really, maybe it's only the third time, at least that I know of. Kelsey Heather did it a couple years ago, too, with AEW and WWE. Also, it's saying she's pulling a Rick Rude, which I think is amazing. Her journey is so inspiring. Like, I know my chat with her on a Wrestling Gal was great. And then we also talked with her on In and Out the Locker Room as well. And she's a fabulous addition to CCW. And I mean, she's aligned herself with the tag champs and the CCW champions. So she's got a little bit of backup surrounding her too.
That she does. And I mean, for me, seeing someone as like inspiring, like we mentioned, like Kayla Sparks, how I propose the name Sparks, because she has that spark. But it's one of those things where a lot of girls who are coming up and they need that inspiration or they need that overall type. She's it. I got to say, she's going to be inspiring a lot for the next generation of ladies.
I definitely think so too. Like she really is a pride fighter. She has had such an incredible journey, and like me and her talked about it in my podcast, and she's talked about it in other platforms and other interviews as well. But like she really has had a unique journey, like training starting at 13 years old, going through high school, balancing wrestling and school, and also stuff with her family and her sexuality and all of that. And then unfortunately retiring at like 17, 18 years old, but then 14 years later coming back, and now she's performing at like Mission Pro Wrestling. She just made her Rampage debut. She was just on SmackDown. She's like traveling all over the states and probably the world in the next couple years. She really has had like a full circle journey.
I got to say this: good things happen to good people, and she is one of the good ones in the professional wrestling industry. That being Miss Kayla Sparks. And speaking of a lot of good things, I mean, WrestleMania is going to come up. It's a part of the big WrestleMania weekend. So I got to ask you, heading back to the Royal Rumble, are you looking forward to Rowdy Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte?
I am looking forward to Charlotte Flair.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I'm looking forward to Miss Charlotte Flair. That's who I'm going to see in the main event.
All right, fair enough. Okay, what about Becky and Bianca?
Becky and Bianca, that's another story. The story is there for Becky and Bianca. I mean, Becky, besides Lita, really has not been beating people cleanly. She's been using rope leverage and like underhanded tactics to win. Obviously, there's that story going in from SummerSlam last year, which is crazy that it's like 7-8 months ago already at this point. There's that story there where she beat Bianca in 26 seconds. Obviously she's beaten Bianca a few times in like triple threat matches and one-on-one as well, but again hasn't really beaten her cleanly, I must say. And so the story is there. I'm glad that the two women too who have won the women's main events of WrestleMania, the only two in history, are now going one-on-one, and hopefully this will finally be the time for Bianca Belair to get her revenge, get her triumph and her victory in claiming the Raw Women's Championship.
I will say this on the women's side of things. Man, Lita for 46 still got it, number one. And number two, I want to see more of her. We're talking about this final run with Lita. I want to see more matches there. She was fantastic.
She really was. And like I said, Becky Lynch, like, shockingly did not use any of her heel tactics, whether it's rope leverage or pulling the tights or anything. It was a clean finish. We saw Lita hit a stratosphere, a Lita salt, a twist of fate. We saw Becky hit her manhandle slam, the Beck exploder, the disarm her. And there was actually a real struggle, like a real clean fight. And also that moment of Becky looking up to Lita and Lita having that emotional draw to the audience, that investment with the audience. And it was good to see Becky in a different element where, yeah, she was heel, but she didn't use those underhanded tactics, I think, as a sign of respect for one of her heroes, Lita. And I mean, that was very much validated in the response that Lita got even in defeat. I was very impressed by that match at Chamber.
Same here. And I mean, from what we had at the Elimination Chamber with that and just the overall event on the women's side of things, now people will say what they will about, Saudi Arabia, but I got to say, how amazing is the progression? We had a total of 12 women competing on a pay-per-view in Saudi Arabia. You know what I'm saying? How progress right there, Ella. Progress.
Exactly. And I mean, also like the gears that the girls got to wear too, that itself was progress, flawless. Also, yeah, 12, it really is progress, just putting it simply. 12 women over 3 matches. We don't very much often outside of WrestleMania get 3 women's matches on a pay per view. So that itself was huge as well.
Wholeheartedly. And I mean, we have another great women's match. Speaking of rivalries, man, you look at the AEW side of things. Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa going at it again. I'm hyped. I'm hyped for it.
I'm very much hyped for it. Obviously, the last time those two met, Thunder Rosa took home the victory at their unsanctioned Lights Out match, which is crazy that it's almost a year ago at this point. Time has flown by. Obviously, now Britt Baker is the AEW Women's World Champion. Will Thunder be the one to finally put an end to Britt's reign? I think this is Britt's toughest opponent to date yet since her run started. So perhaps we could be seeing a title change hands. I don't know.
I'm excited for it. I mean, the storytelling from the Lights Out and everything involved, where we had Reba and Jamie Hayter, who's doing such amazing work in AEW. For me, I really like what they're doing with Britt and Thunder. Going back to that, I think is awesome. And on the other side of things, we do have Jade Cargill and Tainara Conti, who Ty Conti impresses me every time I see her from her WWE tenure, where she is now in AEW. Are you looking forward to Cargill and Ty Conti?
Yeah, I mean, Ty Conti's definitely improved since, I mean, even just arriving to AEW, where she got more freedom and really was heavily relied upon to, especially during AEW's last year and a half. She's been like really, I think, the most, outside of Britt, the most consistent woman featured in AEW for the longest time. I mean, we've seen Jade Cargill too a lot, but really they've leaned on Tay Conti to be in a lot of high profile matchup. Granted, she hasn't won a championship yet, but she's definitely been given the opportunity, and rightfully so, to rise up to the occasion and be one of, I think, AEW's most trusted women. It definitely seems.
I remember watching her in NXT, and I remember thinking to myself, how do you not have anything for this girl? I mean, you can incorporate the jiu-jitsu and the black belt. Like, how do you not? But AEW has done such an amazing job at really showcasing her talents. And I think it's going to be one of those things, man, from we got AEW coming up this week with Revolution. I'm excited. I know you're excited, man, because you got the cowgirl. You're on some cowgirl shit. We're going to flip the script on. You're looking forward to Hangman Page and Adam Cole, baby.
Of course. I mean, talking about cowgirl shit, hardcore country, got to talk about cowboy shit too. I didn't even put that, maybe unintentionally, I was thinking of that too. Adam Page, I don't want his reign to end so soon. I can't. But also this Adam versus Adam. How do you book Adam Cole to lose though? That's what, like, you can't make Adam Cole, if he loses, like clean, something's got to give. There's no way Adam Cole, like especially in like one of his first really high profile pay-per-view matchups, be like losing cleanly. But also Adam Page, I don't want him to lose either, so you have to have some negotiation in the finish.
Okay, see, here's my thing though. As I'm watching this, of course, I'm thinking you're gonna have some interference, but I'm also thinking
Yeah.
to myself, you got Red Dragon, you got O'Reilly and Fish going for the tag titles, and I'm thinking to myself, are we gonna have like a 2.0 version of what we had with the Undisputed Era in NXT, where we're gonna have them have all the gold? You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
They did.
possibly. I will say though, I mean, I wouldn't be against it. I mean, that's just like the Adam Page fan in me. I'm like, it's only been like 4 months now. That's not long enough. Not long enough. He can do so much more, especially after like that 2.5 year long journey it took him to win that championship, to have it taken away. And basically his really big first big pay-per-view like title defense. Ugh, no, now's not the time.
The conflict, man. The conflict
I
is.
know.
But there is a story though from the Bullet Club
Yeah.
days. what we've seen. There's a story, man. I know. I can see
There is.
the anguish on your face right now is really, it's one of those things. I could see like the anguish, just like, oh, man. You just want to get into a corner. You want to ball into a corner. It's what you're doing, man. It's what you're doing. See, it's doing its job. It's evoking all this emotion out of you, Ella.
I think that's just because I'm also a very big Adam Page fan, but also I can see them wanting to put it on Adam Cole, especially with the tie-in with the Bullet Club and the Elite and all of that. I mean, Adam Page kind of came in after Adam Cole was kicked out of the Bullet Club and went to NXT. So now it's kind of run full circle. These two really haven't crossed paths in the same faction before. Because Adam Cole left basically, I think, when like Adam Page was brought in pretty much or shortly thereafter. So there's a lot of story going on here.
Right. And I think for story as well, I'm going to say this John Moxley's story of getting back to where he is. God bless that man. He has gone through a lot of demons, and it's great to see him in a good place and really healthy internally and externally. I'm looking forward to him and Bryan Danielson. We've seen the Shield against Team Hell No, so there's history and also history on the Indies. Are you looking forward to Moxley's first match back on actual live pay per view against Bryan Danielson?
I think a lot of people, just because of their love for Moxley, are definitely going to be invested in this matchup. And him, again, dealing with all his personal stuff, but being able to triumph and now return against somebody like Bryan Danielson is wild. I mean, we've seen it before in WWE, definitely, but this is like the new version of both competitors that are completely different as John Moxley and Bryan Danielson. So I'm excited to see what they bring to the table.
Another match I'll talk to you about before we have two final wrestling topics before we get into the LFC chat. I did it again, not as good as before, but I did it again. So CM Punk and MJF, very reminiscent of Roddy Piper and Greg Valentine with the dog collar match from the 80s, and of course Mr. Brody Lee, God rest his soul, and Cody. So are you looking forward to Punk and MJF finally settling it in the dog collar match?
I think it's a fun story, especially because MJF looked up to CM Punk and even met him at a meet and greet. It's just crazy to see like what CM Punk is bringing out of like kind of this new side of MJF, especially as somebody who's been hated since like forever. So I think this is also a unique stipulation too. I don't think I've ever seen like a live dog collar match. So I think for the stipulation too, I'm like, what are they gonna do? This is my first time watching that stipulation, so I think it's a cool, again, a full circle moment for MJF. There's a lot of full circle stuff going on here. I see you, AEW. I see you.
I will say this as someone who has seen MJF from the Indies and being trained at Creative Pro, he's one of those guys, and not just to be biased because we're both Long Island guys, but he puts the time and effort. He is the proverbial student of the game when it comes to pro wrestling, and I'm so happy for that dude.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Now, two other things to talk about before we get into LFC. Cody Rhodes, you're only smoking mirrors. Whoa, looks to be going back to WWE. Now they were throwing hints with the Edge match, but as we now know, we're going to get a heel Edge and AJ Styles, which I can't wait for. It's been teased, and they both wanted it. We're going to get it. So for you at Cody Rhodes, what do you think about the possibility of him coming back to WWE, doing something at WrestleMania? What are your thoughts on the whole Cody Rhodes situation?
I just don't know where he would fit into this, considering like even if you come in, I've seen a tweet about it, but it kind of rings true. You would kind of be running second fiddle to Roman Reigns because nobody, like Roman Reigns has been literally the guy for this last year and a half, which I'm ready for a new champion, to be honest with you, but it's obvious that WWE is still pushing him with this champion, and who's going to be the one? Maybe it's Brock Lesnar in this winner takes all match at Mania. You have Edge preoccupied with AJ Styles. I'm really wondering like who else is available to, assuming he has a match at WrestleMania, or who would he interrupt to engage in a feud with that would be reasonable. I mean, personally, I would love like a Randy Orton callback. There's no clear picture for Randy Orton really either, unless they go for the tag titles, right?
Yeah, my thing with Cody is too, like, here's the hint I had. So, of course, there's all this buzz that Stone Cold
Yeah.
faced Kevin Owens. But my thing is, the late, great Dusty Rhodes is from Austin, Texas. And when you're disrespecting Texas, maybe we can have Stone Cold and Cody, Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins, some entertainment there.
Mm, possibly. Again, I just don't know where he fits
The either.
logically into the picture. I don't think he would be with Roman and that whole feud. Randy seems to be preoccupied, obviously, with the tag team championship picture. I would assume New Day would probably be in that picture as well, somehow, with like the Usos, maybe. Like, who else? You have Kevin Owens. Seth's been teaming with Kevin.
Yeah.
Would they go after the tag titles?
Oh, we shall see what happens next week on Raw. I mean, if it was me, I would have them win the tag titles. They are the most over thing on Raw
Yeah.
with Kevin Owens and Seth. Like, how do you not have them win the tag titles, right?
Yeah, I just don't know logically where he fits unless Randy splits with like
With Matt Riddle, yeah.
Riddle and then have a Randy singles program. That, I mean, they have that history. I'm just trying to think of top stars who don't have Mania like in like sites right now. Randy Orton is really the only one I can think of if it's not the tag team title picture.
It's tough. And I mean, for me, speaking of tag teams now, how you want to talk about nostalgia? Team Bad. How excited are you for Sasha and Naomi against Carmella and Queen Zelina?
Again, it's coming up kind of suddenly, but also you also that, to be fair though, outside of Zelina and Carmella, for this last month and 2 months, there was no tag team division after the split of Rhea and before this, their last tag team title defense was January 3rd against Rhea and Nikki, and then the week after they split. So really, for virtually 2 months, there was no tag team division outside of the champions. Obviously, I mean, it's Sasha Banks. You need to have it's Sasha Banks and Naomi. You have to have some WrestleMania thing for them. So I think kind of by default, I mean, I'm here for it, but it's also kind of sudden. I wish there was a little bit more build to it, but also they kind of pigeon themselves into a corner. You need to have the tag team title. You don't need to, but you should have the tag team titles represented at WrestleMania. And you can't do that when you don't have any other competitors outside of the champions.
Well, that was my beef because, like you said, in January they lose to the top team that they had with Rhea and Nikki ASH. Then they turn Nikki heel as like the delusional superhero, and I'm like, okay. So I'm watching SmackDown, and Sasha beats Shotzi, and Naomi's on commentary, and then she's like, "We're gonna be the next women's tag team champions," and I'm like, "What?" Like, and I mean, I understand the Team Bad reference because we both all watched that with them and Tamina, but it's like this kind of came out of nowhere. Like, what the hell are you talking
I
about?
mean,
But
I'm here for the reunion, definitely too, but it's also they're on two different shows as well and have had no. It kind of feels like the scenario last year where Rhea Ripley kind of came in last minute before WrestleMania. It was like, I'm gonna challenge Asuka. I mean, I was here for the match, but also it was just very kind of at least this wasn't as last minute as that. That was like 2 weeks before Mania. At least they have about 4 or 5 weeks to build this up leading up to Mania, but they kind of backed themselves into a corner. But I'm definitely here for Naomi and Sasha Banks getting an opportunity at Mania. I think the right call is to have Sasha Banks finally get her first win at WrestleMania. Because isn't she like 0-5 or something like that? 0-4. It's she needs to get her first win. And I mean this is the year to do it.
One final wrestling thing before we get into LFC. L&J, it's about time. The Undertaker is going into the WWE Hall of Fame, taking his rightful place.
Definitely well deserved. 30 years, like basically a part-time and full-time competitor. I don't It seems like it's going to be a solo Hall of Fame this year, which if so, rightfully earned. Normally we have at least 3 or 4 people announced by now. It looks as of now it might be a solo induction year.
The only rumor I saw is because, well, obviously they got the NXT takeover around Mania time as well, and I think they're setting up Braun and Dolphin
Mhm.
they're doing on NXT.
Mhm.
I know the rumor is that they're going to bring in the Steiner brothers, Scott and Rick, to go in, which I mean that's cool. I'm cool, but that's the thing too. But I think it's awesome, and they're rightfully deserved from the tag side of things. But I'm like, this is the Undertaker. You can't put anybody else. It's the Undertaker, you know.
Either you have only the Undertaker or you have Undertaker headlining with a class of like 6 people, maybe. You can't really have just only one other person. You either have just Taker or like Taker headlining within a group of like 6 people, pretty much.
Now the question: who do you have inducted?
I mean, there's been 4 names running about. You have Kane, McMahon, Triple H, and Shawn Michaels. Um, I think out of those, Triple H would be least likely. Um, Sean, you could, but that like wasn't Sean's biggest feud. So I think it would have to be Kane or Vince. I think it should be Kane, personally.
Agreed. I mean, when you have that history of the devil's favorite demon and the brothers of destruction, how can you not, right?
I think so. And I mean, we've seen Kane in WWE and in even even over last summer in Bianca's hometown. So him presenting the key or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, I could see it being Vince McMahon, but I think most logically it should be Kane.
Hey, it's going to be a very eventful WrestleMania weekend, and it's going to be a fun time for wrestling. It's WrestleMania season. It's always a fun time for professional wrestling. What's also a fun time for LFC is we do have LFC 36 Booty Camp coming up, Booty Camp 4. Yours truly will be back, ring announcing the show. I cannot wait to be there. One of the things that I have to talk about with you is one of the main matches on the show. And I love talking about this with you because you are probably the most female empowerment person I know, right at the forefront. I'm gravitating you towards you here, Ella J. So here we go. One of the bouts is Amber Pixie against Betty Brickhouse, Mighty, letting it all hang out. One of the things I love about it is, too, it's very David and Goliath, but we are finally going to see a plus-size talent in LFC, women of all different shapes and sizes, the diversity, everything encompassed in that. How awesome is that? I know you're very big on diversity and just every woman getting their shine.
It definitely too, as somebody like myself who is considered plus size, definitely feels good to have some representation like that, especially too as this world evolves and all different body shapes and like that should be accepted and are becoming more accepted and more represented too in across all platforms like modeling, various sports like that, in pro wrestling too, and of course with LFC. I love it, and I mean, of course I'm going to be rooting for her.
I gotta say, she has become a fan favorite in the LFC Madness tournament. Now we got to talk about this because I was updating you on this because I know you. I know how much you love female, especially women's independent professional wrestling. We had the likes of Vicious Vicky in the LFC Madness. We had the likes of, excuse me, Ashley Bones, who was trained by Jeremiah Plunkett and Bram. We had Vicky Dreamboat, who was trained at the Nightmare Factory. We had Aria Blake, who we've seen on MLW, team with Selena De La Renta, been all around the game. But one in particular we got to talk about is Sabrina Unger, better known as Jamie Senegal. How awesome was it to see Jamie in the LFC?
Jamie, I met Jamie in person for the first time last summer at Empower. She is absolutely incredible with her own personal journey. And of course, now like revitalizing the spirit of her wrestling mother, Daphne, hence the name Unger. Taking on that name was a cool homage. And really, she has had such a transformational journey and very unique. And again, talking about like representation, she embodies like so many factors in life and just how she identifies. And so I love that she got a chance to be a part of LFC and more people get to see her showcase her talents, but also showcasing her beauty, everything about her.
I think what's amazing about Jamie is too, from the work that she has done in combat zone wrestling all around the indies, and especially on the Impact Knockouts, Knockdown, and Empower. She's one of the good ones, like I mentioned in regards to Gayla Sparks, and I can't wait to see her in the future at LFC. She is another one that is going to exist to inspire, to quote the Hardy Boys, because it's very true. But god dang, man, it was a fun tournament, and we came down to Amber Pixie and Betty Brickhouse. So, guys, LFC once more, Booty Camp 4, 36. Ring announcing. We're doing big things here, man. I'm ring announcing. You're traveling. You're corresponding. What a time to be alive, Miss LJ.
It is a crazy time, Mike.
I got to say, folks, we are two passionate people that love what we do. And I love talking LFC and wrestling with you. So, LJ, I'm going to say this. Anytime you want to come back on the show, you are more than welcome to. I always love having you.
Definitely too. We got Mania right around the corner. There's gonna be lots to talk about.
Hell to the yes. So I will say this, folks. Check out LFC once more. This is going to be on the LFC network on Roku. So you get to see this face on the Roku channel with her cowgirl hat and all. Cowboy shit, hardcore country. Man, I got to say, you got to keep repping that, man. That's badass on you. I got to give you props. I like it.
This is my first time wearing it on camera. I kind of like it, I must say. I'm just afraid it's gonna get crushed in my luggage. So I'm praying that that's not the case because then Mickie James would be very disappointed.
Well, safe travels, man. I know you don't want to get that crushed, man. You got a cowgirl hat that's so significant and so symbolistic, man. Come on now.
I know. I'm hoping. Let's hope everything goes smoothly and I arrive to Dallas on time and everything's fine.
Well, wait a minute. Are you actually going to wear that like while you're interviewing everybody? Are you going to wear the hat?
I don't know yet. I'm definitely gonna wear it at some point. I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna wear it at WrestleCon or at Impact. Maybe at New Texas Pro Wrestling, which or maybe or the Sherry Martel Classic. I will be at that as well. So definitely one of those. So
I like your style. I like your style. Very fitting too, as well, with Sharon Martel in Texas. All right, I like your style. So, folks, I will say this before we do close this out. Ella J, what I love also about LFC too is it brings a lot of people together. I introduced this to Ella, and I get to talk LFC with her because if there's anyone, like I mentioned, who's at the forefront of female empowerment and female combative nature, it is Ella. So, Ella, I will step back. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, where we can find you and your podcast, The Wrestling Gal. Please go right ahead.
well, to make it simple, or else we'd be here all day. If
All
you
right.
go to Twitter at It's Ella J, or you can go to twitter.com/wrestlinggal. If you go to the link tree that's in my bio, you click that, you get all the links where it takes you to my merch, my various podcasts, hosting gigs, all of that fun stuff, because we'd be here all day. Or you can follow me on wrestlinggal.com as well.
Links will be in the description. And one final thing I'll say about LFC, isn't it amazing? Because I always talk about internal and external beauty and the sex appeal and mass appeal. Isn't that a great thing to see just now, besides the fact that we get amazing talents in ring action, we get the sex appeal, we get the inspiring factor. It's a great time to be a lady in combative sports, right?
It definitely is. And I mean, it is Women's History Month, so we're all about empowering that.
Now, let me ask you. I'm going to make sure I get this right because you've said this a lot, and I don't want to say it incorrectly. Is it herstory? It's herstory, right? Is that what it is? It's the herstory. Am I close?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I'm trying to say, I've heard you say this so many times and I've always botched it, but I wanted to say, representing Women's History Month. Love it. Anyway, I digress. So, as we close this out, folks, as I always say on this show, beauty, strength, and dominance, the three key elements that make women the work of art that they are. And Ella J, my gal pal, EJ, I include you in those sentiments. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for chatting with me, Mike.
Love this girl. Good night, everybody.